Hello, fans. This is Zach Mitchell here again with another discography video. Guess who I'm going to talk about today? That's right. The Who, or as we call them in my house, the fucking Who. That's what we call them. The fucking Who. So, I'm just going to be going through all of my albums that I have of The Who. Now, I'm afraid you're going to have to bear with me because, as you can tell, I do have a bit of a cold and I'm losing my voice. So, I'll do my best to make everything as clear as possible, and I apologize. So, starting off with Greatest Hits CDs. This obviously is a Greatest Hits compilation with 19 songs on it. Very good. So, The Who, Greatest Hits, it's called. Another one is a much better Greatest Hits album. It's 2 discs. Each disc, one disc, well, let me see here. Yeah, it has 35 songs on it. It's called The Who Ultimate Collection. This is probably one of my favorite Greatest Hits albums of all time. It's just, they do a great job on piecing together an entire career of The Who. So, the Ultimate Collection is awesome. Another one, the only reason that I got this is because there is one song on it that you cannot get anywhere else on any other album, and it's just The Who's Greatest Hits, and that song is Relay, which is track number 10. So you can't get that song anywhere else except for on this album, either on vinyl or on CD. And this album is very, very hard to find, by the way. Alright, so now on to the studio albums. The very first album that they released, The Who Sings My Generation. Probably my favorite song on this is either The Kids Are Alright or the title track, My Generation. The quality on this, just because of the mixing that they had back in the day, is pretty crappy, but what can you expect? I mean, they were just starting out. So, that's the first album. The next album I have, a quick one, which has much better quality on it. And my favorite song on this is either, I'd have to say, Happy Jack is my favorite song on this album. Okay, the next one is The Who's Sell Out. It's very good. Not one of my favorites, but probably my favorite song on it is either Tattoo or I Can See for Miles. Next up is my favorite all-time Who album, Tommy. This was the very first rock album that I ever heard, and I couldn't have picked a better one to hear. I mean, it is just a masterpiece. The very first rock opera of all time. I also have several versions of this album. I have this regular remastered album, Tommy, and then I have the deluxe edition. Comes out like that. It has a few extra tracks on it of like a few demos, alternate takes. So there's that. I also have Tommy performed by the London Symphony Orchestra. Yeah, London Symphony Orchestra, which I think is pretty cool. And I just recently got the Uber boxed set of Tommy, which they released for the anniversary, which comes out with a big book. It has the entire album. It has all of Pete's demos for the album. It has a live version of the entire album, which they thought had been destroyed up until now. They just found it. And it has a couple of other alternate takes on it. So this is one of my favorite. This was one of the very first boxed, big giant deluxe edition that I ever got. The Tommy box set. So there's that. Tommy. Get these out of the way. The next album is their live album, Live at Leeds. I have this version, the regular version, and the deluxe edition. Now, of course, as a collector, you gotta have both, because this has a few different takes on. This has a few different tracks on it that was on the original album. They're the same mixes, but a few of them are cut up differently, and they just fade into each other differently, which I think is really unique. This is a very good. This is a very good addition too, because it has extra songs on it. It also has them performing Tommy live in its entirety. So Live at Leeds, probably one of the greatest live albums of all time. Next up is probably their best, a lot of people's favorite album by them. It's Who's Next, which is one of my favorites of all time. I also have the deluxe edition of this because it has a lot of extra tracks on it, live tracks too. I'd have to say my favorite song on this is, of course, Won't Get Fooled Again. Yeah, so who's next? Next up is kind of like a compilation album that they made of a bunch of releases of a bunch of tracks that they never really released for Who's Next, and for just a couple of their previous albums, and it's called Odds and Sods. I really like it a lot. Next up is another one of my favorite albums of all time, Quadrophenia. I have the remastered edition, regular, and I also have the deluxe edition, because you gotta have both. And my favorite song on this is probably The Real Me. Next up is not one of their best, but still pretty good, is The Who by Numbers. My favorite song on it is probably Squeezebox. Yeah, Squeezebox. So yeah, The Who by Numbers. Not one of their best, but still a good album. And their last studio album that they made with Keith Moon before he died, Who Are You? My favorite song on it is, it's probably Who Are You? Of course. There we go. So there's the go. And I never listened to him after Keith Moon died, because, I mean, that's pretty mediocre if you ask me. But I do have a few other live albums. One that they released about 2 years ago, Live at the Hull. Excuse me. There we go. Live at the Hull, which was the one that they were going to use to release instead of Live at Leeds. So it's pretty much the same exact set list that Live at Leeds has, but if I had to pick my favorite one, it would be Live at Leeds. This is still pretty good, though. It's different. I mean, it's the same songs, but it's a different venue, so they sound different. And the last live album that I have is Live at the Isle of Wight, which is which my favorite song on it is Water. They do a great version of that live. They do Tommy in its entirety, and they do a different version of Shakin' All Over, which transitions into Cream's Spoonful, and the Beatles' Twist and Shout, which I think is really cool. So yeah. Okay. So that is my discography on The Who. I'd love to hear what your favorite Who album is, so why don't you post it in the comment section below. Be sure to like this video, and I'm going to be making a couple more of these discography videos. So if you have any specific band that you'd like me to do, then why don't you post it in the comment section, and I'll see what I can do about that. Until next time, this is Zach Mitchell.